I'm not the kind of guy who usually notices small details. I like to think of myself as someone who keeps things simple. Work, home, a few drinks with friends. Life has always felt predictable, routine. But on that night, everything changed. What started as an ordinary evening ended up cracking my entire world open, revealing things I never could have imagined. It began with an unexpected message from my wife, Ava. It wasn't like her to text me during a party, especially not at 1 a.m. I sat on my couch, the glow of my phone illuminating the dark room, and read her words. I found your ring in my purse. And a note. What is going on? I stared at the screen. My mind raced. My ring? What was it doing in her purse? I hadn't worn it in days. I don't even remember the last time I saw it. And a note? What kind of note? The whole thing felt wrong. I quickly tried calling her, but the call went straight to voicemail. I texted back. What are you talking about? Where are you? Please pick up. The message stayed on delivered without a response. A sinking feeling hit my stomach. Why wasn't she picking up? Ava was always responsive, always quick to calm my nerves, to assure me everything was fine. This silence was unlike her. I stood up, pacing the room. Something didn't sit right with me. Ava and I had been married for 4 years. We weren't the most passionate couple in the world, but we were stable. I thought we were solid. No secrets. No drama. I never imagined we'd be the kind of couple where trust was ever questioned. But the ring? The note? I couldn't ignore the feeling growing in my chest. I grabbed my jacket, my hands shaking slightly as I fumbled to put it on. My mind was a mess of questions, a swirl of fears I'd never had before. What was going on? Was she at some party, playing a joke on me? Or was something much darker happening? I didn't want to imagine it, but it was all I could think about. By the time I reached the party, I was already out of breath, my heart pounding in my ears. The house stood in front of me, quiet, almost ominous in the night air. A few cars were parked out front, but the street was mostly deserted. No sign of her. No sign of anything. I rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door creaked open. A man I didn't recognize stood there, looking at me with a polite but distant expression. He was tall, with a strong jaw and dark eyes. Something about him felt off. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm looking for my wife." "Ava. She's here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though inside, I felt like a whirlwind was about to rip through me. The man raised an eyebrow, glancing over his shoulder. "Ava? Oh, yes, she was here. She left a little while ago, though. She seemed upset." My chest tightened. "Upset? What do you mean?" He shrugged, his face unreadable. "I'm not sure. She just seemed like she needed to get out of here." I didn't think much of it. I stared at him for a moment, trying to read his expression. He didn't look like he was lying. But then again, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be feeling right now. A sense of dread, maybe? Confusion? Did she say where she was going? I asked, my voice nearly cracking. He shook his head. "No, she just left quickly. I'm sorry." I stood there for a moment, caught between relief and panic. Ava had left. But why? Why would she leave in the middle of a party? And why wouldn't she answer my calls? I thanked the man and turned to leave, my mind racing. I needed to find her. I couldn't just let her disappear into thin air without understanding what was happening. But as I walked down the driveway, something caught my eye. A small piece of paper, lying near the bushes, half hidden in the shadows. I bent down to pick it up. My heart stopped. It was a note. A note that seemed familiar in some twisted way. The handwriting was Ava's, but the words? They weren't something I'd ever imagined her writing. "I know what you did. You need to fix this, or we're done." I felt the world tilt beneath me. My stomach churned. What did she mean? What did I do? I stood there, in the quiet, staring at the note. Everything I thought I knew was being ripped apart with each passing second. I hadn't done anything. Had I? In a haze of confusion, I shoved the note into my pocket and started back to my car, my mind spinning with 1,000 questions. But nothing made sense. There were pieces I couldn't fit together, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe, just maybe, I didn't know my wife as well as I thought I did. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was heading straight into a storm that was going to change everything. I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying that damn note over and over. "I know what you did. You need to fix this, or we're done." What the hell did that even mean? What did I do? Was this some kind of cryptic warning, a threat, or a desperate plea? I couldn't tell. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a few minutes, staring at the dim light filtering through the blinds of our front windows. Ava wasn't home yet. That was obvious. She hadn't been here when I called, and I didn't see her car parked outside. My stomach tightened with unease. If she was at a party, why hadn't she come home? And why wasn't she answering my calls? Ava always answered. She had never acted like this before. I sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. It was like I was waiting for something to give. A sign. A clue. Something that would tell me what the hell was going on. After another minute of internal debate, I grabbed the note from my jacket pocket, unfolded it, and read it again. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. And it felt off. Something about it was just wrong. This wasn't the Ava I knew. But I couldn't put my finger on why it felt that way. Maybe it was the sudden coldness in the message. Maybe it was the sudden distance I was feeling, like she was talking to someone she didn't know. I took a deep breath and shoved the note back into my pocket. I couldn't keep staring at it, thinking I was going to get some kind of revelation. I needed to talk to her. I needed to understand what was happening, because the silence was driving me insane. I walked into the house, trying to stay calm, but everything felt different. The air was heavier, the shadows longer, and the silence louder than usual. Ava wasn't here, and everything in this house that used to feel safe now felt like a stranger's home. I grabbed my phone and sent her another message. This time, I wasn't trying to sound calm. I was desperate. Where are you, Ava? Please just tell me what's going on. I'm not going to leave this until I hear from you. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, but no reply came. My frustration was building, and I could feel it bubbling to the surface. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just some fight we were having. This was different. I tried calling her again, my fingers trembling as I pressed the buttons. The ringing tone echoed in my ears, but she didn't pick up. By now, my anxiety was turning into full-blown panic. I slammed my phone down onto the counter, the screen flickering from the impact. I needed answers. I had to find her. I grabbed my jacket, ran out the door, and got into my car once again. My mind was a whirlwind of possibilities. What if she was out with someone else? What if this was some long, drawn-out betrayal I never saw coming? I pushed those thoughts away. No, this couldn't be happening. Ava wasn't like that. At least, I didn't think she was. I drove around for an hour, checking places where she might have gone. Friends' houses, local bars, the places she liked to shop. Nothing. My car kept moving, but it felt like I was stuck in the same place, going around in circles. Finally, I pulled up to a small park near the edge of town. There was no real reason I chose this spot. It just felt like a place where I could think. I parked in a quiet corner of the lot and sat there, staring out into the empty space. I felt like a fool. How had I gotten here? How had I not seen the signs? That's when my phone buzzed. It was Ava. I answered the call as quickly as I could. "Simon, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. I could barely hear her over the static in the line. "Ava, where are you? I've been looking for you everywhere. What's going on? What's with the note?" There was a long pause on the other end, followed by a soft sob. My heart sank. "Ava, please," I whispered. "Just tell me where you are." I'm at the old cabin," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one we used to go to when we first started dating. I need you to come. Please, just come." The old cabin. I hadn't thought about that place in years. It was where we'd spent so many quiet weekends when we first got together. It was remote, isolated, and simple. It had been one of the happiest times in my life. But something about her voice, desperate, broken, made me rethink everything I knew about it. "What happened, Ava?" I asked, my voice trembling now too. "I don't understand. Please just tell me." "I can't explain it over the phone," she replied, her words rushing out in a single breath. "I just need you to come. Please." I didn't hesitate. I slammed my foot on the gas and drove faster than I should have. The weight of her words, her desperation, was eating away at me. But what could I do? She was asking me to come to a place that had once been ours. Now it was a place where she was telling me everything would change. I drove through the dark, the headlights barely illuminating the road ahead. The silence between us felt oppressive, like the calm before a storm. I had no idea what awaited me at that cabin, but I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't going to be anything I could ever prepare for. The door to the past was opening, and I was walking right through it, unsure of what was on the other side. When I finally reached the cabin, the air felt different. Heavier. I pulled up, the engine rumbling to a stop. The house loomed ahead, dark and silent, but I could see the faint glow of a light inside. Ava was waiting for me. But what was she waiting for me to find? The moment I stepped out of the car, I could feel it, the unsettling stillness that surrounded the cabin. The night was unnaturally quiet, with only the soft rustling of leaves breaking the silence. The air was thick, cold, and smelled faintly of damp wood and earth. As I walked toward the cabin, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me, something I wasn't prepared for. Ava's voice on the phone had been fragile, almost broken, and it sent a chill straight to my spine. I reached the door, my heart pounding in my chest, and hesitated for a moment. Why had she chosen this place? The cabin had always been a safe haven for us, a retreat from the chaos of everyday life. But now, standing in front of it, it felt like I was about to enter a different world entirely, a place where secrets had been buried, waiting to be uncovered. I knocked twice, my hand trembling slightly. The door creaked open almost immediately, and there she was. Ava. Her face was pale, eyes red, like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was disheveled, as though she had been running her hands through it in frustration. But it wasn't just her appearance that struck me. It was the look in her eyes. It was as if she had seen something so disturbing that it had shattered her. "Simon," she whispered, stepping aside to let me in. Her voice was weak, distant. "You came. I didn't know if you would." I followed her inside, but every step felt heavier than the last. The air in here was stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in a long time. The cabin hadn't changed. The same old furniture was still in place. The worn leather couch, the wooden coffee table, the fireplace that had always been a central part of our evenings here. But tonight, none of that comforted me. The space felt foreign. Something had shifted. "Ava, what's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I tried to look at her, but it felt like she was avoiding my gaze. Her eyes kept darting toward the corner of the room, as if she was afraid to look directly at me. "I didn't want to bring you here," she said, her words trembling. "But I couldn't. I couldn't let you find out any other way. Not over the phone. Not like this." She sat down on the couch, pulling her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them as if trying to protect herself from something invisible. I sat across from her, my mind racing, trying to make sense of everything. "Ava, please. What's happening?" I asked again, my patience wearing thin. This wasn't like her. She had always been the one to calm me down, to give me the answers I needed. But tonight, it was like she had no answers herself. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. "Simon, I've been hiding something. Something I didn't want you to know, but I can't keep it from you anymore." I leaned forward, my heart sinking further with every word she spoke. "What is it, Ava? You're scaring me. What could be so bad that you couldn't tell me?" She took a deep breath, as if bracing herself for what she was about to say. "It's not just the ring, Simon. It's not just the note." Her voice faltered, and she looked away, unable to meet my gaze for a few moments. "It's everything. The last few months. I've been seeing someone else." Her confession hit me like a punch to the gut. I froze. My body felt numb, as if the world around me had come to a complete halt. I could barely comprehend her words. Seeing someone else? My mind scrambled to process this. But it didn't make sense. Ava? My Ava? The woman I had trusted with everything? I stood up, my hands shaking. "What do you mean, seeing someone else?" I managed to say, though the words barely felt like my own. "How long? How could you?" "Stop," she cut me off, her voice filled with desperation. Just let me explain." I sat back down, unable to stand, my legs suddenly feeling weak beneath me. I didn't want to hear this. I couldn't. It felt like a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. But her eyes, those eyes, told me this wasn't a lie. She wasn't making this up. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Ava continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "It started a few months ago. I met someone at work, and at first, I thought it was just harmless. He was just someone to talk to. Someone who made me feel noticed. But then, it went further. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want you to hate me." I shook my head, disbelief flooding my mind. "Ava, how could you? How could you hide this from me? All this time, you've been lying to me?" "I'm sorry, Simon," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I never wanted to hurt you. But I've been lying to myself too. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could stop. But I couldn't." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but another part of me just felt empty, like I was hearing words from a distant place. I had no idea who this woman in front of me was anymore. The person I thought I knew, the one I had built my life with, was gone, and in her place was someone I barely recognized. Who is he? I finally managed to ask, my voice hoarse. Ava hesitated, looking down at her hands. It's Mark, the guy from my office. I never wanted to fall for him. It just happened. I felt the room closing in on me. Mark. Of course. I had heard her mention him a few times, but I never thought anything of it. I never thought he would be the one to destroy everything. But the worst part was yet to come. Ava's next words were the ones that shattered whatever was left of my trust. There's more, Simon. I don't know how to explain it, but Mark isn't the only person involved in this. There's someone else. Someone I never thought I'd get mixed up with. I felt the blood drain from my face. My mind was reeling. What do you mean? Who else? I asked, my voice rising with panic. Ava looked at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. I think I'm being watched. I think I'm being watched. Ava's words hung in the air like a chilling fog. For a moment, everything felt frozen. My heart skipped a beat, and my mind scrambled to make sense of what she had just said. What do you mean? Watched by who? I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of confusion and growing dread. Ava's eyes flickered toward the corner of the room, a nervous glance that sent an icy chill down my spine. It was as if something in that dark space had unsettled her more than the conversation we were having. I don't know, she whispered, her voice so low I had to strain to hear. It started a few weeks ago. At first, it was little things. A feeling, like someone was always near, always watching. Watching you, I pressed, leaning forward, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. This was no longer about her affair. It was something far more sinister, something that pushed the bounds of reality. Ava nodded slowly, her hands trembling in her lap. Yes, at work, at home, even here. Sometimes I'd find things out of place, things I didn't remember touching or moving. I started feeling paranoid. I thought I was imagining it, but then there were the messages. At first, it was anonymous texts. Then letters. Always vague, always cryptic. Her voice cracked as she continued, and I could see her body shaking, as if the words were too much for her to bear. What kind of messages? What did they say? I asked, barely able to speak, but needing answers, needing something that could make sense of this nightmare. Ava looked at me, her eyes filled with terror. The first one said, I see you, Ava. I see everything. Don't think you're safe. I thought it was just some prank. But then it happened again. And again. They started to get more specific. They mentioned things I'd said to you, things I thought no one else knew. A chill ran through me. The air in the room felt heavier, as though the walls themselves were closing in. Ava, this is insane. You've got to tell me who this is. Who's doing this to you? I asked, trying to hold on to the last threads of rationality. I don't know, Simon, she replied, her voice breaking. I don't know who it is. But it's not just a stranger. They know things. Too many things. And that's why I couldn't tell you sooner. I was scared. Scared that if I told you, you'd think I was crazy. But I'm not, Simon. I swear, I'm not making this up. Someone is out there. And they're watching me. I sat back, stunned, struggling to process everything she had just said. My mind raced, trying to figure out how this all connected. The affair, the strange messages, the feeling of being watched. It was as if everything was spiraling out of control, like we were both stuck in a web, slowly being pulled into a darkness we couldn't escape. I took a deep breath and looked at her, trying to steady my thoughts. So this person, whoever they are, they've been stalking you? And it's gotten worse since you started seeing Mark? Ava nodded, her gaze shifting nervously as she wiped away a tear. Yes, I didn't want to tell you about Mark, about the affair, because I thought it might make everything worse. But it's all tied together, Simon. I can feel it. Whoever is doing this knows what's happening between us. And I'm scared. I'm scared for both of us. Her words hit me like a punch. The weight of what she was saying was too much to bear. Someone was watching her, someone who knew everything. The thought made my skin crawl. How had I never noticed anything? How had I never seen the signs of something so dangerous lurking in the shadows? Ava, we need to go to the police, I said, standing up. This isn't something we can handle on our own. We need help. You need to tell them everything about the texts, the letters, the feeling of being watched. But Ava shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. No, Simon, I can't. I've already tried. The police don't believe me. They think it's just a prank, a case of paranoia. They think I'm making it up. But I'm not. I swear I'm not. And the worst part is, I don't even know who to trust anymore. What if this person is someone I know? What if they're closer than I think? I felt the blood drain from my face. The fear in her voice was real, raw. This wasn't some figment of her imagination. Whoever was doing this, whoever was watching her, was out there, lurking in the shadows, and they weren't going to stop. I don't care what the police say, I said firmly, my voice steady now. We'll go together. We'll make them believe us. We won't stop until we figure this out. Ava's eyes searched mine, but there was something in her expression, something dark, something I hadn't seen before. I don't know if we can, Simon. I don't know if I can protect you from this. Whoever this is, they're not going to stop. And I think they've been watching you too. The words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I stood there, frozen, as the realization settled in. It wasn't just Ava who was being watched. It wasn't just her life that was being invaded. This person, this unknown enemy, had been watching me, too. And now, the terror that had started with Ava was about to engulf us both. What do you mean? How? How can they be watching me? I stammered, my pulse quickening. Ava swallowed hard, her eyes glinting with fear. I've found strange things around the house, Simon. Little signs. A cracked window, a door left slightly ajar, footprints in the garden when no one had been out there. And the worst part, the note you found in my purse wasn't just for you. It was for both of us. Whoever is doing this is trying to send us a message, Simon. I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin. This wasn't just a random stalker, I thought. This was something far worse. Someone who knew us, someone who was close enough to infiltrate our lives without us ever noticing. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't. There was no explanation that could make this make sense. Ava's voice trembled as she whispered, I think we're in danger, Simon. Real danger. And I don't know how to stop it. My heart pounded in my chest. We'll figure this out. I promise, we'll get through this. But first, we need to stay together. We need to be careful, watch our backs. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. Whoever this was, they were closer than we realized. And it was only a matter of time before they showed themselves. Ava's words echoed in my mind as I tried to process the gravity of what was happening. They're watching you too. I kept replaying that one sentence over and over, unable to shake the image of someone lurking in the shadows, someone who knew everything about our lives, our routines, our secrets. Whoever this was, they were closer than we realized. And worse, I had no idea who they were. Ava sat across from me, trembling, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her pale face looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept in days. I could see the fear in her eyes, but there was something else there too, something darker. I wasn't sure what it was, but I could tell she wasn't just afraid of the Watcher. She was afraid of something much deeper. I don't know what to do anymore, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Everything is falling apart. I sat beside her, trying to reassure her, even though I was just as lost and terrified as she was. We're not alone in this, Ava. We're in this together. We'll figure it out. We'll make them stop. But I didn't know how. I didn't know who was watching us or what they wanted. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how out of control everything had become. We were both trapped, caught in a web of paranoia, fear, and deception. Ava looked at me, her eyes searching mine for something. Anything. Reassurance, maybe. But all I had were questions, just like her. Do you think it's someone we know? She asked, her voice shaking. Could it be Mark? Could he be behind this? I felt a chill run down my spine at the mention of Mark's name. I'd known about the affair, but I never thought about the possibility that it could tie into something more dangerous. But what if he was involved? What if he had orchestrated this whole thing, using the affair to manipulate us, to get us both into a position where we wouldn't see the true threat? I don't know, Ava, I said, trying to stay calm. It could be anyone, but we have to think carefully. We can't jump to conclusions. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the affair. There was something else at play here, something far more insidious than a cheating partner. I could feel it in the air, in the way the silence pressed down on us, thick and suffocating. "We need to go through everything," I said, standing up. "We need to go over every message, every letter, every little thing that's happened. There's something we're missing. A clue, maybe. Something that will tell us who's behind this." Ava nodded slowly, her eyes weary. Okay. But I'm scared, Simon. What if it's too late?" I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't know what the right thing to do was. But I knew we couldn't sit here, frozen in fear. We had to act. We had to fight back, even if we didn't know exactly who we were fighting. We started with the letters. Ava had kept them hidden, afraid that I would find them and question her further. But now, she pulled them out from a drawer in the cabin. Each letter was as cryptic as the last. The first one had simply said, "I see everything, Ava. You can't hide." The next had been more personal, more disturbing. "I know you're not alone. I know what you're doing. It's too late to stop now." The words were chilling, and as I read them, I felt the walls closing in. Whoever had written these wasn't just watching Ava. They were watching me too. They were watching us both. And what did they mean by, "It's too late to stop now"? Was this all part of their plan? To drive us into this frenzy? To make us question everything and everyone around us? I turned to Ava, trying to steady my breath. "Did you ever try to trace these letters? Find out where they're coming from?" Ava shook her head, looking down at her hands. "No, I didn't want to. I didn't want to know. I was afraid. What if they were closer than I thought?" I reached for her hand, trying to comfort her, but my own thoughts were racing. "We need to find out who's doing this. If we don't, we'll never know if we're truly safe. We can't let fear control us, Ava." She nodded, but there was something in her eyes that told me she wasn't entirely convinced. She was afraid of something else, something deeper than just the stalker, something she wasn't ready to tell me. "But what?" "We'll go to the police," I said, my voice firm. "We'll get a private investigator if we have to. We're not doing this alone anymore." Ava hesitated for a moment, then spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think it will help, Simon. The police won't believe us. They'll think it's all in our heads. And even if they do listen, what can they do? This person is too careful. They're too smart." I didn't know what to say. Ava was right in some ways. We had already tried reaching out to the authorities, but they hadn't taken us seriously. They'd dismissed our concerns, chalking it up to paranoia or some kind of joke. But this wasn't a joke. This wasn't paranoia. Whoever was watching us was real, and they were far more dangerous than we ever imagined. "I'll call anyway," I said, the frustration building in my chest. "We have to try." But even as I said it, a terrible thought crossed my mind. What if calling the police only made things worse? What if we were already too deep in this mess, and the more we fought to get out, the more dangerous it became? I felt the weight of it all pressing down on my chest. The fear, the uncertainty, the creeping suspicion that we were being toyed with, manipulated by someone who knew everything about us. My mind raced, but I couldn't come up with any answers. I could only hope that by calling the police, we could uncover something, anything, that would help us get one step closer to finding out who was behind this. But deep down, a part of me already feared that we might never truly know, that the Watcher was always going to be one step ahead, pulling the strings from the shadows. Ava stood up slowly, walking toward the window. "I don't think we're safe here anymore," she said, her voice distant. "We need to leave. We need to go somewhere far away, before it's too late." The words hit me like a wave. "Leave? You mean run?" I asked, my mind still spinning. She nodded, her face pale. "I don't know how else to protect us, Simon. But if we stay here, if we keep fighting this on our own, I don't think we'll make it out alive." My heart pounded in my chest. The fear in her eyes was so real, so raw. She was right. Whatever was happening, whatever had started this nightmare, was far from over. And it was only a matter of time before we were forced to face the truth, whatever it was. I stared at Ava for a long moment, my mind racing. The urgency in her voice, the fear in her eyes, it was real. Everything about this situation had escalated so quickly, and I didn't know how to stop it. The idea of leaving the cabin, of running from whatever was watching us, seemed impossible. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If we stayed here, in this place full of memories, we'd only be playing into the hands of the person who had been following us all along. But where would we go? And what would we do once we left? "Where will we go, Ava?" I finally asked, my voice hoarse. "You're telling me we need to leave, But where would we even run to? How do we escape someone who knows everything about us? Ava's eyes darkened, and I could see the struggle in her face. She didn't have an answer either. It was the same blank uncertainty I had been feeling for hours. We both wanted to run, to get away from the nightmare that was swallowing us, but there was nowhere to hide from a threat like this. The person who had been watching us, was no fool. They knew how to cover their tracks, how to get inside our heads, how to make us feel like we were losing our grip on reality. I don't know, she whispered, her voice breaking. But I can't stay here anymore. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. I don't know how much longer we can keep pretending. Her words hit me hard. It wasn't just fear that had driven her to this point. It was the overwhelming sense of powerlessness. I could feel it too now, creeping up inside me. That same sense of being trapped in a maze with no way out. I'll get us out of here, I said, my voice more determined than I felt. We'll figure something out. We'll leave, go somewhere safe, and then we'll think about what comes next. But even as I said it, a part of me wondered if it was already too late. Ava and I stood there in the dimly lit cabin, a place that had once felt like a sanctuary now transformed into a prison. We were both on the edge, and the worst part was that we didn't know how much longer we had before the person watching us made their next move. I could feel it in my gut, the growing sense that we were no longer in control of our own lives. That sense of impending doom was suffocating, and I hated it. We need to pack, Ava said, her voice flat. We can't waste any more time. I nodded, but I wasn't sure where the energy to move was coming from. I felt like I was walking through a fog, my mind too overwhelmed by the weight of what we were dealing with. But Ava was right. We couldn't stay. Not with whoever was watching us out there, just waiting for the right moment to strike. I began to gather our things, but the task felt meaningless. It was as if the more I packed, the less real it all became. What were we running from? Who was out there? And why had they chosen us? These were the questions I couldn't answer. No matter how hard I tried to put the pieces together, nothing made sense. The phone in my pocket buzzed, startling me. I reached for it, half expecting it to be a message from the police or, worse, from the person who had been stalking us. But when I looked at the screen, it wasn't either. It was a number I didn't recognize. I froze. I had no idea who this was. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend it didn't exist, but another part of me knew that I couldn't afford to let any stone go unturned. I pressed the button to answer, my hand still shaking. Hello, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a long pause on the other end, and I could hear faint breathing, like the person on the other side was waiting for something. Finally, a voice spoke, soft but unmistakable. It was a voice I hadn't heard in months, and it sent a jolt through my entire body. It's me, Simon. Mark's voice came through the phone, calm but with a hint of something darker beneath it. We need to talk. I felt my heart stop. Mark. The very name that had already sent everything spiraling out of control. What did he want now? Ava and I started, but Mark cut me off, his voice sharper now, almost taunting. No, Simon. You don't understand. You don't get it. I know what you're trying to do, but you can't outrun this. You can't hide. The words sent a chill down my spine, and for the first time since all this had started, I felt true fear. Not just for myself, but for Ava. What are you talking about, Mark? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, though I wasn't sure I even wanted to hear the answer. I know what you did, Simon, Mark said, his voice low and steady. And I know what she's been hiding from you. She's not the person you think she is. She never was. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Was he talking about the affair? About Ava's betrayal? Or was this something worse? Something more dangerous? I don't have time for games, Mark, I said, trying to keep control of my emotions. What the hell do you want? I want you to know that you've already lost, Mark replied, a small laugh escaping his lips. This is bigger than both of you. And there's nothing you can do to stop it now. You're already too deep. You're already in the trap. His words sent a ripple of terror through me. What trap? What did he mean by too deep? Was he talking about the affair? Was he involved in whatever was happening? Or was he part of something even darker? I'm coming for both of you, Mark continued, his tone becoming more sinister. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. The line went dead. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I stood there for a moment, stunned, the phone still pressed against my ear. I felt the cold weight of his words sink in. I'm coming for both of you. Who was he talking about? Who else was involved in this twisted game? I turned to Ava, my mind racing. That was Mark. He knows everything. And he's coming for us. Her face went pale, and for the first time, I saw true fear in her eyes. We need to go? Now. This isn't just about us anymore, Simon. This is bigger than anything we could have imagined. She was right. I could feel it now. This wasn't just about a cheating spouse or a stalker. This was something much more dangerous, something I wasn't prepared for. And as we ran out of the cabin, not knowing where we were going, I realized something. Whatever was coming for us, it was already here. And there was no escaping it. The car door slammed shut with a deafening thud, and I didn't even wait for Ava to fully buckle her seatbelt before I threw the car into gear and sped off. The tires screeched as we raced down the narrow dirt road leading away from the cabin, the headlights cutting through the darkness ahead of us. My mind was spinning, still trying to piece together the last few moments of conversation with Mark. I'm coming for both of you. That line echoed in my head like a mantra. What the hell did he mean by that? What did he know? Ava sat beside me, her body tense, her hands clutching the seat, as if she were holding on to something far more fragile than the leather beneath her fingers. Simon, where are we going? She asked, her voice a whisper, though I knew it wasn't out of fear of being overheard. It was as if she, too, was unsure where to run anymore. The fear had wrapped its claws around both of us, and every direction now felt like a dead end. I don't know, I muttered through gritted teeth, my knuckles white as I gripped the wheel tighter. I just know we can't stay there. We have to get away from Mark, from whoever's behind all of this. The words tasted bitter as I spoke them. I had no idea how we were supposed to escape from something so pervasive. Whoever was watching us had already infiltrated every corner of our lives. As I drove, I glanced over at Ava. Her face was pale, the dark circles under her eyes more prominent now, as if the terror of the past few days had aged her by years. Her lips were pressed into a tight line, and her eyes were fixed ahead, staring into the empty night as if she were searching for something in the distance. I could see the weight of what she'd just revealed still heavy on her. She's not the person you think she is. Mark's words rang in my head like a bell, and every time they did, a cold shiver ran down my spine. Do you think Mark's really involved in all of this? I asked, my voice barely breaking the silence. Do you think he's been part of whatever's been happening? Ava shifted in her seat, her eyes flickering with a mix of confusion and regret. I don't know, Simon. I wish I could say I had answers. But there's something wrong about all of this. Mark's involvement with the affair, what he said tonight, it felt like he knew more than just what I told you. It's like he was playing a part in something bigger. But what? I don't know. I can't make sense of it. Her words left an icy knot in my stomach. Something about the way she said it, the fear in her voice, the uncertainty. It felt like we were at the center of something much larger than we could imagine. Mark wasn't just playing us. He was playing a part in something orchestrated. But what was the bigger plan? What was the end game? I hit the gas again, driving faster than I probably should. The road stretched out in front of us, winding through trees and over uneven terrain. The night was so still that the only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional creak of the old car as it rattled down the road. The thought of stopping somewhere, of just pulling over to breathe for a minute, felt impossible. We needed to keep moving. We had no idea what was waiting behind us. Ava was quiet for a long while, the weight of everything settling between us. I didn't have to ask, because I could see it in her eyes, the doubt, the guilt, the fear. And it was breaking me. Breaking her too. Simon, she said suddenly, her voice fragile, as if the words were a confession she wasn't sure she wanted to make. There's something I didn't tell you. Something else. Something I was too scared to admit. I glanced over at her quickly, then back to the road. What? What is it? She hesitated, as though she wasn't sure if she should continue. I think there's someone else behind all of this. Someone who's been pulling the strings. I slammed the brake, the car screeching as I pulled over to the side of the road. The gravel crunched beneath the tires, and I threw it into park. Ava's sudden admission had taken me by surprise. Someone else? My brain immediately tried to process this new information. What do you mean? Someone else? Ava, we're already dealing with Mark and this stalker. What are you talking about? She took a deep breath, her eyes glancing nervously around the dimly lit road, as if she were waiting for someone to emerge from the darkness. It's not just Mark. There's someone who's been watching us longer than we knew. Someone who knew about the affair, who knew about everything, and has been manipulating things from the shadows. I think they've been behind everything. The letters, the messages, the feeling of being watched. I swallowed hard, trying to make sense of what she was saying. How do you know this? How can you be sure? Because I started seeing signs, she said, her voice shaking. The first time I got the letter, remember when I found that note in my purse? I thought it was just a random thing. But then, I started noticing things. Little things that made no sense. Someone had been in my office, and my personal items were moved. The house, there were things out of place. And the messages. I think they've been in contact with me longer than I thought. They knew what I'd do before I even made the decision. It's like they're controlling everything. I felt my stomach tighten. The implications of her words hit me like a freight train. Someone had been orchestrating everything from the shadows. But who? And why? Ava, are you saying that someone else was involved in the affair too? That they knew everything, even before you did? Ava nodded, her eyes wide. Yes, I think they were the ones pushing me toward Mark. They made sure we crossed paths. They knew what would happen. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had believed, was slipping away from me. Who was behind this? Who had set all of this in motion? Ava's voice snapped me back to reality. Simon, we can't stay here. We can't keep driving aimlessly. We need to find answers, and we need to do it before it's too late. Whoever this person is, they're getting closer. I looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes. Her fear was now my fear, and the weight of it settled on me like a stone. You're right, I said, my voice firm, though I felt the uncertainty swirling within me. We need to stop running. We need to find out who's behind all of this before they come for us. With that, I put the car back into gear, and we drove on, not knowing where we were going, but knowing we had no choice but to find the answers. The truth was out there, and the closer we got to it, the more dangerous everything became. But we had to keep moving forward, because the alternative was too terrifying to face. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a sliver of hope began to pierce through the dark clouds. Ava and I were no longer running from shadows or hiding behind fear. We were finally facing the truth head-on, no matter how painful it might be. The truth had a way of unraveling the mess we were tangled in, but we were determined to uncover it, together. We kept driving, the sound of the tires on the road a steady beat that mirrored the rhythm of my heart. The car hummed along, the uncertainty still thick between us, but now there was a sense of purpose in our steps. We weren't just running from the stalker, or Mark, or the past we were trying to escape. We were running towards something else, the answers we so desperately needed. Ava's hand reached out for mine, and for the first time, I didn't feel the weight of the silence between us. I didn't feel the fear or the panic that had plagued us for so long. She was with me, and I was with her. We were in this together, no matter what. I think I know where we need to go, she said quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but there was a spark in it that hadn't been there before. I glanced at her, my heart leaping with a mixture of curiosity and relief. Where? There's someone I trust, she said, her gaze firm. Someone who can help us. We can't do this alone anymore, Simon. We need to take the fight to them. We need to expose everything. My heart swelled. Ava wasn't just scared anymore. She was ready to take control, to confront the darkness instead of running from it. It was exactly what we needed, a plan, a direction. The journey to the person she trusted took us to a quiet, secluded place just outside of town. It was an unassuming house, tucked away from the noise and chaos of the city, and as we pulled into the driveway, I could already feel the weight starting to lift. Ava's eyes had softened, and she gave me a small smile as she opened the car door. I never thought I'd bring you here, she said, stepping out of the car. But this is where we'll finally get the answers. I followed her up the driveway, feeling the anticipation rise within me. We knocked on the door, and a few moments later, it swung open. Standing before us was a man who looked to be in his late 40s, with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. Ava seemed to relax in his presence, and as she introduced him to me, I understood why. This was someone who knew exactly how to handle situations like ours. This is Detective Harrison, Ava said. He's the one who can help us. Detective Harrison's eyes flicked over to me with a quiet intensity. I've been waiting for you both. I know everything, and I know how to make sure it ends. As we sat down in his office, Harrison pulled out files, documents, and photos, everything we needed to connect the dots. He had been tracking the person who had been stalking us for months, a shadowy figure that had been pulling the strings behind everything. The anonymous texts, the cryptic letters, and even Mark's manipulation. He had known from the beginning that this wasn't just a case of paranoia. It was something far more dangerous, and it had taken far more planning than we could have ever imagined. "I've been tracking this person for a while now," Harrison said, his voice steady. "They've been using people like Mark to create chaos in your lives, to break you down. But I'm going to make sure it stops now." The next few days were a whirlwind. Detective Harrison worked tirelessly to track down the individual responsible for everything that had happened to us. With his help, we uncovered a disturbing truth. The person who had been behind all of it wasn't someone close to us, but rather someone who had been watching us from the shadows, a former associate of Mark's, someone with a deep personal vendetta against him. They had been using Ava and me as pawns, pushing us into a corner, hoping we would self-destruct. But we hadn't. We had fought back. The police apprehended the individual just days later. The weight of it all, the letters, the watching, the manipulation, began to fade away as we saw justice served. The chaos we had been living in was over, and for the first time in months, I could finally breathe easy. Ava and I sat together in the quiet of the house we had once feared, the light from the setting sun casting a soft glow over the room. We didn't need to say much. Words weren't necessary anymore. The silence felt comfortable now, a quiet understanding between us. We had made it through the storm, and we had each other. That was enough. "I'm sorry," Ava whispered, her voice filled with guilt. "I should have told you everything sooner." I shook my head, squeezing her hand gently. "We're here now, Ava. We're together, and that's what matters." We didn't need to look back anymore. The past was behind us, and though the scars would remain, they no longer defined us. We had faced our darkest fears and had come out the other side, stronger than before. And as we looked ahead, there was a glimmer of hope. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was more than enough. As the sun set, we stepped out into the evening, hand in hand. The future was uncertain, but one thing was for sure: we would face it together. And with that, we walked forward, ready for whatever came next, knowing we had already conquered the worst. The story that had nearly torn us apart was now behind us, and the rest of our lives awaited us, full of possibility and new beginnings.